Brother McKinnis, you're muted.
Oh, I'm muted.
Yes, you are.
Good evening. Let me try this again. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the District of Illinois Fireside Chat. I am joined here this evening by the District of Illinois historian, Brother Chuck Smoot, and we are on the cusp of debate night in America. And Brother Smoot, what a debate it was, and what a night. Yeah, go ahead, Brother Smoot.
Well, I think, as a historian, I think this was a historic evening. A historic evening to see Vice President to debate and to stand on the stage and discuss things with the former president. Also historic, not just because of the vice president, but because of the former president and his past. So there was a lot of history made tonight just on the surface, but it was definitely an interesting debate. I can't wait to talk to everybody about it.
It was. So listen, we're going to get right to it. Welcome to this post-debate roundtable. We have an extraordinary lineup of folks with you this evening, and looking forward to a great conversation. So we're going to welcome them to the stage, and then Brother Smoot, perhaps we can do introductions and get this conversation started. It is so good to see everyone here tonight. At least one person has been here before, maybe two. I see Brother Senator L.G. Sims. Good to see you, Brother Senator. How you doing tonight?
I'm wonderful, Brother District Director. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. So, Brother Smoot, I'm going to yield to you and we can get started this evening.
All right. Thank you, Brother District Director, Brother McInnes. I do want to welcome everyone to the District of Illinois Fireside Chat, our debate roundtable. Before we get started, I just want to do a couple of quick issues of housekeeping. Do keep in mind that this program is a part of our ongoing effort as the District of Illinois to bring information about individuals and things going on in our communities that affect not only members of Alpha Phi Alpha, but our broader communities. And so we are very happy to have a very distinguished panel to discuss these issues. I do want to say up front as a reminder that the views that will be expressed tonight are not necessarily reflective of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the District of Illinois, or the Midwestern region. So please keep that in mind as you're listening and as we get ready to start the discussion. So as we get ready to get into it, I want to do a brief introductions. For deference sakes, let me start with our brother Senator, Brother Sims. It's always a pleasure to see you, my brother.
Brother Smoot, it's always a pleasure, my brother.
If you can give a 30-second intro, I'm going to time you. But if Brother Sims, if you could start seriously a brief 30-second intro about yourself.
But thank you, Brother Smoot. You know it takes me 5 minutes to clear my throat, so this might be a little difficult.
I know you well, Brother Sims.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and privilege to be here. My name is LG Sims. I have the honor and privilege of being the State Senator of Illinois 17th Senate District. I'm also a past Illinois District Director and also the 26th Midwestern Regional Vice President of Alpha Phi Alpha. It was again great to be here. Looking forward to the discussion this evening.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Brother Sims. Sister Perry, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you. This honor to be here with such distinguished men. I'm Shakina Perry. I'm a former Metropolitan Water Reclamation District Commissioner. I'm also a voting rights advocate and just continue to fight for safe and clean drinking water for all Illinoisans. Thank you for having me.
Right. And Brother AVP, would you please introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, good evening, everyone. First of all, it's crazy you got me on this call with all these powerhouses on this call. Man. But it's a blessing, it's a privilege to be on this call. But for those who don't know me, my name is Johnny Brooker, born and raised in East Orange, New Jersey. Always got to represent the East Coast. Come on. I'm a double major in journalism and political science, attending Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I also, last but not least, I proudly serve as the Midwestern Regional Assistant Vice President of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
We're so happy to have you, brother. And brother Prentice Butler, will you please give a brief introduction?
Yes, once again, good evening, everyone. My name is Prentice Butler. I'm the Executive Director of an organization called the Neighborhood Bridge, based in Austin. Lifelong Chicagoan and also a former candidate for 4th Ward City of Chicago. It's just great to be here tonight. In my past life, worked for the city government for 12 years, and before that, advocate for the community. So it's a pleasure to be here tonight.
All right, thank you for everyone, and for people to just reacquaint themselves. Brother McInnes, can you give a couple of quick seconds intro about yourself?
Sure. I am Brother Leonard C. McInnes II. I have the privilege of serving as one of the successors to Senator LG Sims as the Illinois District Director for Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. In my day job, I'm an assistant professor of religion and Black studies at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. In my former life, I spent a lot of times in Republican politics, having interned in the Bush White House and worked as a policy fellow to Elaine Chao. So I have real interest in this kind of work and very excited about this panel tonight.
Thank you, Brother McInnes. So let's just get into it. And I want to start out with this. One of the conversations that I've had with a number of people going into the debate is the assumption that the debate was Vice President Harris is to lose. That how she approaches it, given her past oratory skills, given her past experience as a prosecutor, and things that she has done and accomplished, but also coming into the election so late in the game that she has a lot to prove. Therefore, she had the most to lose. I want to open this up, and actually, Sister Perry, I want to start with you. Do you agree with that assessment? And if you do, how do you think she performed? Or if you don't agree with that assessment, what do you think was her mindset walking into the debate?
For sure. Thank you for that question. I think that, Vice President Harris, has a long history of just this experience in government. We know her record, we know her track record, we've heard her resume. So I think that if anything, she came in the most qualified to run for president. And I think she put it on full display tonight. She was poised. Her debate prep was outstanding. Of course, she missed a couple questions. I want her to answer a little stronger. But I think overall, it was just really poised, and she came really prepared. I think that at the end of the day, as a woman in this race, as a Black woman in this race, the cards were already stacked against her before we even jumped into, the policy positions and that sort of thing. But I think that she has been really committed to the policy, to her stances, to the support that she's garnered from both Republicans and independents, and the growing list of Democrats who were formerly Biden supporters who are now shifting her way. So I think there is just ample opportunity for her to keep building the big tent. And I think tonight was a home run for her in a lot of ways that shows she's running for all American people, and not just one singular group.
Thank you for that. So, brother, I want to throw this to Brother Sims as the sitting legislator among us. How would you look at that? Not only the vice president's performance, but also the former president's performance, Donald Trump's performance. How would you gauge that in terms of the way he presented himself during the debate?
Well, I thought that you couldn't have seen a more disparate view of the vision for the two candidates for this country. Here you had one candidate, Vice President Harris, who was talking about the future. One candidate who was talking about the issues that impact Americans every day. You had another candidate who used this opportunity to air his old grievances, who didn't want to talk about moving forward, but only wants to talk about looking backwards. We're never going to move forward staring in the rearview mirror. And that's what the defamer in chief wanted to do. He wanted to continue to look in the rearview mirror and talk about the things that don't make a difference to the average everyday American. What we are talking about is investing in new jobs, investing in new companies, investing in home ownership. Vice President Harris laid out a vision for America. When you talk about someone who's talking about increasing tax credits for startup companies by 900%, I want people in the back to hear that. Increasing the tax credit for individuals by 900%, from $5,000 to $50,000. Imagine what that could do for a startup business. He didn't talk about any of those things. All he wanted to do was engage in grievance politics and talking about how terrible things are, as opposed to laying out a vision for what he would do. That's not what we need.
So, thank you for that, Brother Booker. I want to throw this to you as a resident college student. What is it that you were looking to hear from the debate, and did either candidate mention anything or bring up items that spoke to you as someone who was getting ready to start their career and looking at, pursuing the quote unquote American dream? How did you react to what you heard as a college student?
So as a college student, the way I reacted was really, I think, how every American who's educated and can think for themselves would react. Everything that we saw today, I can't say it for myself, but I would say it was really expected. You hear one side of the aisles talking about how make America great again, bring us back to what we once was, division, separation, little to no rights for both genders. But then you have another candidate that came in poised, showed what she can do, and then she's been doing this for a long time, especially in the sense that where she was a prosecutor. But at the same time, I believe VP Harris, she was destined to be here at this appointed time. She has a proven track record, and I believe in any type of leadership, you go into picking your right-hand person knowing that if the opportunity presents itself, that he or she will be ready for the task at hand. So as a person that's in college and in school, still learning how this world works, how our nation operates, it's not more so of what was being said, but it's more so of the specifics and how it was being said to me. For example, so Trump brought up a lot of lies. So he talked about how he was the sitting president that had the most number of votes. That's not true. You lost to former President Joe Biden, who had 81. So that's a false statement. But just being as a college student, it's important to be educated. And it's important to do your research, because if you don't, how can you know these things for yourself?
Thank you for that. And I think that is, I mean, you bring up, and I think we'll obviously come back to some of the misstatements that not only Trump made, but, a couple of things that even VP Harris said. But one thing I want to throw out to everyone here, and I want to start with Brother Butler, was there anything in the debate from either party that you wanted to hear that you didn't hear? Were there any issues that particularly mean something to you or to your constituents or to the people that you work with that you did not hear reflected from either candidate, overall, or how that works? So what did you think about that?
On the short end of the stick, I wanted to hear some truth from former President Trump, but that didn't happen. But I heard a lot of what I needed to hear from Vice President Harris in terms of what she planned to do for the middle class. I'm glad that the first question she jumped at it to talk about the tax credit for middle class families, contrasting the vision for the future. So I think for me, I was satisfied with the responses that Vice President Harris gave this evening. It was thorough, she was strategic, and I think she was succinct with her answers. The point of tonight was for the public to know who she is. A lot of people are still not familiar with who she is and her policies. Tonight, she did a great job of expressing her policies and how it lift people instead of tearing them down. So I really appreciate that she was on target, and she really came out the gate fighting. And I appreciated her debate performance overall. It was great.
Sister Perry, what about you? Same question.
So, as an environmentalist, I'm glad that the last question did touch on climate change. I would have loved to hear just like really speaking about how this stuff impacts Black people in particular. Black people experience disproportionate amount of flooding, right? We have more lead service lines in our communities than any other community in the country. We are more prone to air pollution and noise pollution and so many different things. So I think although her answer about climate change and the investments that the Biden administration has made were really strong, there are $15 billion in the bipartisan infrastructure law that continue to trickle into our communities and putting people to work and helping getting the government to act on our behalf. But I think that was that would have been a really good opportunity to really connect climate to everyday people and really send that message of why these investments need to continue, not just from protecting our public health, but also from a workforce development and economic standpoint as well.
Thank you for that. Brother McInnes, same question. Anything you would have liked to have heard that you didn't hear?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, let me say, I think that, going back to your first question, that this debate, was Vice President Kamala Harris is to lose. I think that she knocked it out of the park. I want to say that from the get. I think that she was poised. I believe that the former president was a bit unhinged throughout this conversation. When it comes to, but I do want to think about the very first question, Brother Smoot, if I could for a moment. And the first question in the debate was about the economy and the persons, I forget who raised the question, but the question was more or less, most Americans are feeling it, at the grocery store when it comes to the price of food, the price of gas, that Americans are complaining. I find that comment or that statement to be true, by the way, right? That most Americans do want to see a difference in the way that money is spent and the amount of money that's being spent on everyday products. What I would have wanted to see, although I think she has a plan for the future, that's for sure, to get at Senator Sims's point, that the vice president was talking about the future. In that moment, I thought that she could have connected with the American people by simply saying, you know what, I get it. Americans are hurting. Price of food is too high. The price of gas is a bit too high. And then went into her statement about the future and about the plans that she has for the nation. And so, I thought that more connecting on that point would have been stronger for me, at least. But that said, I think that Trump demonstrated over and over again that he does not have a plan for the American people when it comes to the economy.
I think Brother McKinnis's phone is popping off on us.
I think it's the Russians again, man. The Russians are hacking us every time we
I think so.
About them, something happens.
Well, that's what happens when you got the Boost mobile phone. So,
You see, Smooth, I see what you did there.
Wow. Brother McKinnis, are you saying we didn't have a Bill Clinton moment saying that she didn't feel the pain? That kind of moment that's what we're looking for?
It's the economy, stupid, right? I mean, and even though I think Clinton knew that, I think the point of that statement was that the American people want to hear you say, it's the economy, it's the economy, it's the economy. But still the contrasting element between these two candidates, and I think the way that Senator Sims started his commentary is appropriate. The contrasting element between these two when it came to understanding that it really is about the economy cannot be, the gulf cannot be wider. But that simple statement, like, I get it, I feel it, I understand what you're going through, right? Trump could never say that. Let's be clear, right? He can never make the claim that he understands what the Americans feel at the pump, in the grocery store. The cost of chicken is too high. So we know that he cannot say that. But it's the demographic that he is trying to persuade are the people who actually are saying those things behind closed doors. Poor whites, right, in particular, who he has convinced to vote against their interest, right? But it's also the average middle-class Americans, right, who are also making those kind of statements.
So, okay, I want to, Brother Sam, same question. Was there anything that you would have liked to have heard from either candidate that did not come up tonight?
You know what? I got exactly what I expected. I thought that the vice president had some questions she had to answer in terms of introducing herself to the American people, and I thought she did that. I thought that she had to lay out a clear vision for how she was going to lead and govern our country. I thought she did that. But I also expected the former president to do just what he did. That's why I call him the defamer in chief. He is going to lie, defame, and distract. Every time she made an answer, she answered a question, and she was actually answering questions. He would try to distract and defame and misdirect to try and divide. That's just not what the American people are looking for. They're looking for somebody who is going to back to Brother District Director's point. How are you going to make my life better? I didn't expect to hear a great deal from them, but I also in looking at in expecting and coming through tonight, I wasn't looking for him to do anything other than be himself. But then what I could do is also look at their records. And if you look at their records on every measurable impact, the Biden-Harris ticket has done more and done better than Trump when he was in office. If you look at crime, he talked about crime being up by every measure, and across all large municipalities, violent crime is down. If you look at the economy, we've created more new jobs than at any other time. The stock market is higher now than it was when Trump was in office. On and on and on. But that's not what you heard from him, and he's never going to say those things. All he is going to talk about is how things are rigged and how he was mistreated and how we're failing. How can you want to be the leader of a country and talk about his failures? He is so busy. He is so busy yearning for and pining for the past that he is destroying our future.
And lastly, Brother Booker, the same question: was there anything you would have liked to have heard that you did not hear?
Yeah, so I really wish I would have heard more about Project 2025. They did touch about it, and then obviously he kind of eradicated that situation. So I had nothing to do with it, nothing part of it. But at the same time, the gravity, it's so massive in our society. Let's talk about it. Why is it circled around your name? Why is it similar to your policies and what you're trying to do? So I kind of wish the moderators kind of pointed that out more directly. But then again, you have to be fair. But as I conclude my statement, I like to preface with this. If I didn't say it before, I do love my mother, but I am with her.
Well, we appreciate that. It's, we've been talking about the policy issues that were coming up and didn't come up. One of the things I found very interesting was the discussion on abortion and on abortion rights. And what I found is there was the backpedaling from Trump about, previously saying he would, he was against abortion. Now it's, we put it to the states, so that's okay, and that's what people wanted. But that he did not say whether or not he would sign a national ban on abortion. But conversely, I think with Vice President Harris's comments, while I think it spoke to her base, I thought that this is such a loaded conversation for so many people across the country that some could say maybe she treaded upon it a little too lightly. I'm going to throw this out, just to anyone who wants to respond. But how did you find the discussion on abortion, whether or not how it aligns with what you think, or it aligns with what you think people in the country think?
I'll take it. I thought that the discussion on abortion was just indicative of the broader discussion on freedom overall. The freedom, when folks infringe on a woman's right to choose, it's just indicative of the other freedoms that the former president and his allies want to take away from us. Not just the freedom over the autonomy over our body, but the freedom of what to think, the freedom of who you can love, the freedom to live where you want to live. All of those things are front and center. So to brother Assistant Vice President's point, all of those are critical elements of Project 2025. The diminution of those rights are right there. They're right there. So no matter what the former president wants to try to distract, what his entire platform is about reducing our freedoms. It's about telling us not just how to think, but what to think, and that is extremely dangerous. And that's why the difference between the two of them couldn't have been more stark. Vice President Harris is talking about how to invest in people, how to invest in the future. The former president is talking about how he can make sure that his agenda becomes our agenda. Well, that's not the way this country works. The way this country works is we don't have an autocrat. We don't have an oligarch. We don't have a king. We are a democracy, and we are people. It's we the people, and we the people are in charge of our own destiny. And we don't need an autocrat to tell us, or not just an autocrat, but an aspiring dictator to tell us what to think, who to think, and how to love.
Anybody else want to chime in on the abortion response?
Well, yeah, let me hop in with this real quick, Smoot. You know, I think that it has to be said that of all the moments, and by the way, there were, you know, lots of moments where the moderators, you know, could have in fact fact checked both candidates in real time. On the abortion point was one in which one moderator got it right at the end of Trump's. Again, this is what he does. This kind of politics of, you know, derail and division. And he made these wild accusations that physicians were removing babies in the 9th month and, you know, slaughtering them on the operating room table, deciding what to do with this baby that we've just delivered. And the moderator called him out and said, in no state is this happening. And I think there comes a point when one must be bold in denouncing those kinds of lies that are being told, because the point there is not only to undermine the credibility of, in this case, the vice president, but it's also to inflame, a particular demographic of individuals who might be pro-life. The reality is that, Smoot, and Brother Senator Sims nailed it. Women are practically the only group in this nation who are told what to do with their bodies, mainly by room full of male politicians who are making decisions about a woman's body, about woman's health care, about how and in what way her body operates. And, you know, the moderators and Democrats, you know, have to be more proactive and more outspoken in calling it what it is. Donald Trump lied on that debate stage tonight about this issue. And time again, before, you know, the court was packed with, you know, his appointees, he made it clear to us what the long game was. And by the way, Mitch McConnell also made the same claim, in the rotunda of the U.S. Senate. When it comes to Supreme Court justices, Mitch McConnell said, "I played the long game." Right. In other words, I derailed Obama's candidates by making up these accusations that no president should choose the Supreme Court when it's this close to election, but it didn't apply to Donald J. Trump. Right. And so when the court was packed with these candidates, and by the way, he told us, I'm going to get candidates or Supreme Court justices who are going to override Roe v. Wade. And this is why I want to say, from my position as an alpha, Democrat or Republican, elections have consequences. And this is one of those points, Brother Smoot, where it was clear to us that the election of the former president had deep consequences, not just for women's health care, but for a broad range of issues.
Well, and I think that issue, you know, you bring up the history of what Mitch McConnell brought up and what you had about how they brought up the fact that this was something that Trump did specifically, that this was part of the litmus test, and this is what we see. I think, but before I move on, any last comments about the abortion debate? Because I personally found that exchange interesting, so that's why I just get a little cross section. Anyone else have a comment, Brother Butler? Anyone?
You know what? I also thought she did an effective job. I appreciate the moderator pointing out blatant lies, saying, you know, things that doctors are deciding after the child is born whether to take that child's life. That was ridiculous. But for the most part, I think that discussion, out of all the discussions this evening, was the most in-depth. There are certain issues I would have rather had more commentary on. I think that I mentioned earlier something that was missed, and I think the discussion about student loans. When Trump lied about the program, about what happened, and in effect, there are some people that have benefited from their efforts, including myself. I wish that Vice President Harris would have spoke more about that. I think that would have been a good conversation about the efforts to relieve that kind of burden for so many students, so many people in this country.
So there's one thing that there are two things I noticed about the debate, and I think they're kind of separate, but they're well, at the beginning of the debate, I noticed again, not in keeping with typical debate faction. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but when they both came on the stage, Trump went immediately to his podium, and Vice President had to walk over to him to shake his hand. And I don't know if you all heard. She introduced herself because this is the first time they were that they ever met. But the other thing that struck me was that he never once looked at her during the debate. The camera showed her watching him, looking at him several times, but he was always looking forward, looking at the moderators. And I couldn't help but harken back to the Trump-Clinton debate when Trump was looming large over Clinton physically, almost in a effort to intimidate her. The reason I bring this up is this. I heard someone on NPR a couple of days ago say, and I think I kind of saw this played out today during the debate, is that Trump would play to his base and Harris would need to play to the undecideds. How do you think that assessment is what we saw tonight, with Trump playing up to his base and maybe Harris playing more to the undecideds? Or do you think Harris was playing to her base and Trump was attempting to go after undecided? How did you guys see that? Sister Perry, what do you think?
I think I agree with you. I think it's a combination of both. I definitely think that Trump is very clear on his messaging, right? Tax cuts to the rich, and some sort of actions around our immigration struggles here in the United States. I think those two things were apparent. Like, the way that the delivery always sucks, but he's been very consistent on those 2 points, like throughout the campaign trail. And I think that in the way in which he talks about it, somebody mentioned about migrants eating cats and dogs and calling them criminals, and they're driving up crime rates in our cities, and all of these different things that aren't rooted in any sort of fact, but really continues to create this division and this continued divisiveness between our communities. I think is just a problem, right? So I think he really spoke to his base in that way, and I think for Vice President Harris, I think she, this was her moment to really present herself to American people. I think for the most part, people don't really follow the vice president and their policies or what they're up to. She's done a ton of things as vice president. And as our brother on the call mentioned, as a college student who's educated and actively looks for these things, some of this stuff is right in our face. Like, we just have to go actively look for it. But we also know at the same time, some people in our country lack broadband access. Everyone doesn't have the privilege of going to college and learning the differences between fact and disinformation. So there are just so many things at play. But I think Vice President Harris just really did a good job of, putting her policy stances out there, really distinguishing herself from Biden in a lot of ways, and reminding Trump that he's running against her and not Biden. So it's kind of speak to your earlier point of him not making eye contact with her and not wanting to shake her hand. I think that just speaks to this idea of the lack of decorum that we're starting to see in our political space. And it was definitely on full display tonight, even just, talking over the moderators,
Right.
just continue to talk, although he's muted and his time is up, and continue to talk. So the decorum is lost. But I think both of them did a good job speaking to their bases. It's just a matter of, for at least Vice President Harris, did she bring in new voters along the way? I think Trump will continue to entice his base.
As someone who's been on the campaign trail, Brother Senator Sims, what do you think about that? Do you think that Trump was more going after his base and Harris was going after the undecideds, or how did you view that?
Well, first, I thought that was a great observation from you about the beginning of the debate. That was clearly a power move. It was a move to show dominance over her.
Right.
What I also felt in that moment, I felt disrespected. I felt the disrespect of her as a Black woman. But I also saw from her the ability to keep her calm, be calm, cool, and collected, and to show the American people the adult in the room. Because even though he was just disrespectful as he was, she remained professional and she was an adult in the room.
I need to bring up a point though, because there was one point, and it was towards the end. I swear she was about to call him a mother.
She was.
I don't know if you all remember that point.
I absolutely remember that. My wife and I were texting during the debate, and I absolutely remember that moment. But what I appreciated about her response, and even though she wanted to go there, she didn't, because she knows that the office requires and is entitled to the dignity that it deserves. And she was not going to allow him to drag her into the mud as much as he tried. And he did try. She was not going to allow him to do that. She was not talking to him. And that's what going back to an earlier question from you. I don't think, in this question in general, I don't think she was talking to him at all. She was talking to the American people. She was introducing herself separate. And another part that I found extremely disrespectful for him to refer to Joe Biden as her boss. That was belittling on a number of levels, so she wanted to go there. She did, but as the vice president of the country and as someone who is campaigning for the highest office in the land, she knew that she had to maintain her dignity, and I thought she did a great job at that.
And I thought, just one second, Brother McKinnis, I think that was evident in, I think she said at least twice, you're running against me, not Joe Biden. The fact of making that distinction, I thought that was important. Brother McKinnis?
Yeah, I want to say a couple of things, right? So Vice President Harris used this phrase over and over again, and I think we should pay attention to it. And the phrase that she kept reminding him, beyond the fact that she is not, he is not running against Joe Biden and etc. It was reminiscent of the election against Hillary Clinton, right? There was one debate in which Hillary had to say forcefully to Donald Trump, "You're not debating my husband, you're debating me."
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Yes.
And so what we see unfolding here is what Vice President mentioned is the same old playbook. Let's denigrate women. But beyond that, let's make Black people hyper invisible, right? So in other words, when she walks onto the stage, I thought that I was very clear what she was doing. When she looked at this man and said to him, "Hi, I'm Kamala Harris," it was a way of undoing and daring him to call her other than something what her mother named her, right? I am Kamala Harris, when the past few weeks, she's been whatever they wanted to call her. But secondly, a keen observation is the question to the former president, what do you see her as? Pay attention to the way that he framed this response. I don't know what she is. She can be whatever she wants to be. A way of rendering her Blackness invisible. I mean, this is the same old playbook that we've seen from this former president over and over and over again. So Senator Sims is right. It was a power play. But it's also a way, I think, of speaking very clearly to a particular segment of his base, right? Again, when Hillary Clinton was damned by making this one statement, which, by the way, was true. And the statement was that Trump has people who are following him, not all, but he has some people who actually operate as a basket of deplorables. She was not suggesting then that every Trump supporter was deplorable. But what she was getting at is that someone like Trump appeals to the scorched earth campaign of this country. Those that traffic in the racism, the bigotry, the misogyny. And there are individuals who, in fact, follow behind this individual. So all these dog whistles about she can be what she wants to be, and I don't know if she's black. And I mean, this is, in fact, a particular way of trafficking language and signaling to that demographic, I am your man. I mean, think about it for a moment. When he was interviewed by Don Lemon, or it wasn't Don Lemon, it was, I forget, from CNN, and they asked him directly, do you denounce the support from David Duke? And he played footsie with this question. I don't know who David Duke is. Who is this man? Right. You are a 77-year-old white man. We know you know who David Duke is. Okay. It wasn't for 2 weeks when he finally came back and said, I don't accept this endorsement. It's dog whistle.
Right. Well, and so there is, now I will admit that during the debate, I had to step away once, but what I don't remember coming up was there any significant discussion on gun rights or gun legislation during the debate?
Yeah, he made a comment. He kept saying over and over again that Vice President Harris was after people's guns, and I thought she did a masterful job of debunking that and pointing out and reminding the American people that she is a law-abiding gun owner herself. Both she and Governor Walz are both gun owners. I thought she did that forcefully. I thought she did it effectively. But he just continues to. He feels like if I repeat a lie enough, it becomes the truth. And to your point about playing to the base and the dog whistles, if he continues to tell that lie over and over again, then somehow it becomes the truth. But when it's nothing more than the rantings of a failed losing politician.
Well, I think you actually dovetailed directly into my next question that I really want to point towards you and Brother Butler. Trump, to me, and I'm not trying to Trump bash here, even though, whatever, but Trump seems to be really a almost one-note candidate when it comes to issues of immigration. When you talk about the dog whistling, and he's made the immigration thing such a looming issue, he can't answer a question without somehow injecting an issue of immigration into it. When the reality is, when he talks about the violence committed by immigrants, particularly those who come from Mexico, where statistics show that they are no more likely to commit crimes than other people in our area. And it makes me wonder that, is immigration on the level of what he's made it to really that big of a problem? And if it isn't, then why has been made such an issue? And how is the vice president being held accountable for it? So, I mean, why in your estimation, why has immigration become such a hot button issue, such a go-to issue for the former president? Brother Butler, why don't you start to tackle that as much as you can?
Not a problem. You know what? Listen, Trump has people advising him about some divisive issues that are definitely being talked about in certain communities in this country. And immigration has become a divisive issue in Chicago and other places. And I distinctly heard him during the dog whistle moment in the beginning talk about Black jobs and things of that nature. He knows what he's doing with that comment. He knows that there is dissension within the community about this issue. And he keeps bringing it up because he hopes to get more Black people and other people to vote with him about this perceived issue that immigration is a major problem in this country. Now, it is. He tried to really pin Vice President Harris when he spoke about why didn't you do something sooner? And frankly, that is a comment I've heard in different people in the community. And she effectively fought back by saying, listen, we try to work on a bipartisan deal to effectively give you and your allies what you've been wanting for years. More border security, more money to build effective immigration policies that will mitigate the amount of people crossing the border. So I think he's been intentional about the dog whistle moments, trying to stoke fear and division within the Democratic caucus, and you saw it again tonight.
I want to before I continue it. I was just gonna say, for anyone who's watching, please drop a question, a comment in the chat. I know I've been remiss in not reading them, but we will address any questions you have to any of our panelists or in general. The most recent quote, "Save America, vote Trump. His record speaks for himself." So, how do we? I think that is a attitude and a point of view that we must address. Darren G says, "My black job is to vote for Kamala Harris." I think we have a element of our country that is happy with the track record of Trump. How, I know this is a left-leaning panel, but nevertheless, let's be honest. I mean, I know at one time I was a Republican. I know at one time, as Brother McKinnis mentioned, he was a intern in the Bush White House, and there's nothing wrong with that for either of us. Just something else we have in common, Brother McKinnis. You probably follow my footsteps. Once again, following a deuce, but we, I gotta crack jokes. We can't always be serious, but here's the issue, that we have people like the gentleman who just left the comment. If you want socialism, vote for Kamala. If you want to make America great again, vote Trump. That is a segment of our society that we have to be honest about. And we have these individuals in the Black community. We have them in our fraternity. We have them in our churches, in our neighborhoods, everywhere. And so that is not a constituency we should just, blow off. So how do you account or address those who would espouse those types of thoughts?
I believe it starts with the point of you got to be able to agree to disagree. Politics, our nation, our world, it's so divisive right now, especially today in this debate. You saw the back and forth banter. Even at the beginning of the debate, neither candidates were really answering the question. Brother Senator, he said it earlier. He said VP Kamala Harris, she wasn't really talking at Trump, but I disagree. I say she was, and she was very poised when she was, and she was very intelligent in what she was saying. But yes, she was talking to the American people. But when she looked at him, she gave him that eye. That's the eye you don't want to get. That's the eye you get when you're at church from your mother, when that means get your butt in check and pay attention. But to debunk all those issues, we have to come together. We have to educate ourselves. How can you talk on an issue, talk on different policies? For example, you talk about immigration. We as a Black race, as Black people, we have to educate ourselves on that, because I think you only know something's only as massive to you unless you really see it and know for yourself. So I think it might have to take some of us to go out to the border in Wisconsin or go down to Texas to actually see who's actually coming into our country. Do I think every single immigrant is coming here in this country is bringing in, like Trump says, drugs, crime, is causing raping our people? Absolutely not. But I can say this: our country was built on immigrants, and if we have that mindset and have that philosophy, I think a lot of different things can change. And it also starts with our mindsets as well, being able to break out of one's mindset to try to just take in and listen to what somebody else has to say. This world can be in a much better place, in a much better situation than it is right now.
But brother AVP, I agree with you. Our politics is divided, but does it have to be? And I think that was the message that I heard, and I agree. That was the message I heard from the vice president. Let's turn the page on the politics of yesterday. Let's turn the page on the politics of division. You know, this this politics, this grievance politics, it does not move us forward. You know, so when you start talking about someone who is just invested in digging up and drudging up grievances from the past, it doesn't get us anywhere. You know, Edmund Burke once said that no passion so effectively robs the mind of its powers of acting and reasoning than fear. That's why you heard the former president talk about immigration, but he doesn't talk about the fact that the governor of Texas was then inviting folks to migrate from Venezuela, and then inviting them to go and send them to Chicago and New York and Colorado and other places around the country where there were quote unquote democratic areas to cause and foment fear. That was all part of a design. And I thought the vice president did a masterful job of pointing out the fact that the former president he purposefully torpedoed a bill that would address this issue.
Yes.
And now, whether you agree or disagree with President Biden's decision to then go it along on the executive order, or do the executive order and then act for or ask for legislative action, you know, whether you disagree or agree with that position, the fact is now that he has taken the action, you are seeing the immigration issue subside. But what the former president, and when he was pushed on this issue, he kept ignoring it. That
Right.
he got directly involved to stop a bipartisan agreement, that bipartisan Republicans and Democrats standing side by side to get something done, because he would rather play politics than get things done.
Well, and I think that dovetailed perfectly into the question in the chat. Michael Churchill asked a great question. How do we protect democracy other than just voting? And I think that's a great question. I'll throw that out to anybody who wants to offer an answer for that.
I'll take it. I think, we oftentimes get in this, the presidential election happens every 4 years. It's the one that everybody pays attention to, but the president doesn't necessarily address and affect the way you live at the local level. That's why why Alpha Phi Alpha talks about a voteless people as a hopeless people, because it's every election, every year, every time. We don't just pick and choose,
local, right?
because all politics is local. You can't just wait for every 4 years to then get involved. You have to be engaged. As when we talk about we the people, the power of citizenship and the responsibility of citizenship is to be involved and engaged at all times, to make sure that we leave the country better than we found it. So you can't just wait for election day. And I would encourage folks not to just wait for an election that happens every 4 years, but there will be elections that come up in your municipal level. There will be state and local elected officials. A state senator and a state representative is closer to you than the president. Your city council member is closer than you than the president. Those elections will happen, and you should be paying attention to them. Here in Chicago, right now, we are having for the first time a vote to elect an elected representative school board in the city of Chicago. Those are the folks who are going to be talking about the curriculum that your children learn, how budget happens here in the city of Chicago for the Chicago public schools. Those are the types of elections that we should be involved in. So if you want to protect democracy, make sure that you are engaging in and participating in election all the time, but also work with your local elected officials, because once someone is elected, once you cast your vote, your responsibility doesn't end. Your responsibility is just beginning once you elect someone. So that means you've got to go and support them. And support means showing up at events. When they host a town hall, going and learn what they do. Join an advisory committee so you can help them as they're drafting legislation. There are many ways that you can help protect our democracy in addition to voting. But your first responsibility is to vote.
And I think you bring up a great point. I'll get to what Brother McKinnis just put on the screen. Is the necessity for getting involved, volunteering, and working with your elected officials. I think sometimes and maybe this is just me, but I think sometimes we tend to think that our elected officials aren't going to pay attention to us. They aren't going to listen to us. They're just going to dismiss us, either or those that work with them or for them, and so that we don't matter. So I think, encouraging people to get involved and volunteer and be around is very important. So I thank you for that. We're running up on time, so I want to get ready to start winding down because I want to be respectful of everyone's time this evening. But I do think the endorsement from former Vice President Dick Cheney was significant, because when we say this is an unprecedented election, I don't think we've ever seen an instance or an election, particularly a presidential election or even a senatorial election, where so many members of the opposite party are endorsing the other candidate. Now, let's be real. It's not as much of their endorsement isn't as much for the vice president as it is against the former president. But nevertheless, it's still a significant aspect. And I guess as we get ready to wrap things up, do we see this as after this election, will things still continue this way? Will we still have these divisiveness? Will we still see people coming across the aisles to go against their party's candidate? Or will we return back to something before? I always look at things starting with Newt Gingrich and the Contract on America. If we remember what that was back in the late 80s, early 90s. So what do you, and throw this out to anybody, do you think this is what is going to be commonplace, or that we will eventually turn back to a semblance of decency and respectfulness in our politics?
You know what? I will say that not initially. I don't think we're going to get back to quote unquote normal anytime soon. I think Trump is representative of this kind of anger and vitriol that's been unleashed over the last 30 years. Since Newt Gingrich and that era of partisanship has only gotten worse. And I'm concerned about what comes after Trump. Effectively, hopefully, if he does lose, that will be the end of his career. But does it mean the end of MAGA? I don't think so. I think it is still going to be a threat that we have to be aware of as we go forward as a country.
Anybody else? Quick thoughts on that aspect?
Yeah, I'll be quick here. I just want to say something to the point of Mr. Churchill on the screen, Smoot, and the point that Senator Sims made. And the reason why I reverted to Dick Cheney's comment is because I think beyond voting, we have to speak up. We've got to speak up. The reality is that what happened in January after Mr. Trump lost the election was an attack on our way of life, whatever we believe that it is. And now he tries to dodge it. Now he tries to pretend that, I was invited off their invitation. But democracy was on the line. And I think beyond voting, to Churchill's question, it takes individuals who are willing to speak up. Now, whether or not, to your point, Brother Smoot, these individuals are doing it, to get back at Trump, or are actually in support of, Vice President Harris, I don't care why they're doing it. I just think that it's necessary that people of goodwill and logic do what's possible to reject the political way of someone like Mr. Trump. And by the way, I want to say this is not the position of Alpha Phi Alpha. I have to say that. This is a personal viewpoint that I am putting forward at this moment. But I do believe that Dick Cheney is right. Trump cannot be trusted with the Oval Office again. And anyone of good conscience and goodwill and good logic should wholeheartedly make every effort to ensure that that human being gets nowhere near our nuclear codes again. I think it is essential for us and for our children and their future that that person is nowhere near the White House again.
As we begin, I want to do a quick poll on everyone. So on a well, just say we'll go around. We'll start with Brother RVP. In your view, who do you think won the debate?
I think it was an onslaught for Vice President Kamala Harris. And can I answer the previous question you asked real quick?
Sure.
Yeah. So as a Gen Z rep myself, as we are aging and getting acclimated to society, right, we have the power to change all of this, right? Gen Z came out in record numbers in 2022, I believe, for the midterm election, and we're projected to turn out and blow that out the water. So by the grace of God, my peers and I, we will change this country for the better. But Brother Prince is right. MAGA will still be around. I just don't think something as massive as that base would just die out just like that. But the real answer to that question is only time will tell. Because say former President Donald Trump wins, we're still going to be divisive. We're going to have less rights because more things are going to be stripped away. More Supreme Court justices will be added onto the court that lean conservative. But at the same time, if Vice President Kamala Harris gets elected, there's still going to be those people that still are in or that are still against her for the simple fact of she's a woman of color. So with that, only time will tell.
Brother Booker, let me interrupt you because I want to ask you a quick follow-up question.
Okay.
Are you seeing among your peers on your campuses and those that you interact with that their attitude toward this election is more optimistic or more pessimistic? And that's coming from your generation.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, and here's why. So today, I go to Marquette University. My whole entire campus was watching this debate solely because of the comedic relief they would be receiving from the debate, and not because of what's actually being said. Right? I think my peers, my age, everybody they have their own personal opinions and take it upon themselves to educate if they want.
Okay.
But yeah. So that's why I say it's a mixture of both. That's why it's really all depends on the person that really, if they want to dig deep to know what's really going on. Cause a lot of people my age, where they're getting information, where they're getting the news from, social media. Sometimes it's correct. A lot of it could be debunked or misinformed. But it all depends from person to person. But at the same time, there are a lot of people that are my age that are in this fight. Thank God I'm in this great illustrious fraternity where I'm surrounded by like-minded men all across this country that is on the ground putting in the work for these efforts. But at the same time, there are on the other side, there's other people who really they have their view, they have their thought, and nothing is going to get through that thick skull of brain of theirs.
Brother Brooker, I can say we are definitely happy to have you to be amongst us. Sister Perry, what about you? How would you grade the performance of the debate?
I agree. I think Vice President Harris did a great job. I think at the end of the day, I had two takeaways that's still top of mind is like investing in small businesses and, making home ownership easier for Americans that are looking to seek it, right? I think we're just thinking about Black people. At the end of the day, we're 2 times likely to get rejected on mortgage applications. Our wages are lower than our white counterparts. I can go down the list of, all the barriers that have been placed since early 1900s of making home ownership harder and harder for us. So I think even just, even stating it, although it didn't get as much attention, I think, as it deserved. I would, if there was a direct question about it, to be able to extrapolate it a little bit more, but be even able to drop that nugget there for people to say, hey, I have policy plans in place, I have positions, I have like a vision for America. I think she hit a home run with that, and I just look forward to what that actually looks like in practice when she wins.
Brother Butler.
Vice President Harris did well tonight. I thought she did great. However, it was not a knockout punch. I'm still concerned this is going to be a knockout, drag-out fight up until the end. And I think it's key to speak to what Brother McKinnis mentioned earlier. She needs to be able to connect with voters in a more intimate fashion. And I think if she's able to do that and connect with people more consistently and share who she is with the public, and they feel the sincerity from the efforts, that could be a deciding factor in this race. But right now, I think the basis for each candidate heard what they wanted to hear. Everyone tomorrow morning is going to talk about how each candidate did well in their respective fields and their mission and what they're trying to accomplish tonight. I don't think it was necessarily a knockout blow for either candidates, but I will say that I think Vice President Harris did win in my mind, but still there's a lot more work to be done in the next couple of weeks.
And Brother Senator, what about yourself?
Oh, no, I concur. I thought the vice president won this going away. I thought that she completely demonstrated that she is prepared, that she has the right temperament to be the person who leads our country into the future. I thought that her discussion of the opportunity economy, and every time I hear her say that, I think of the opportunity economy doing a couple of things: generating wealth and also eradicating poverty. And that's where we just going back to the point of how we then figure out and connect on that level of the issues that are important to everyday people. And that's where I thought she really won it. I thought she had that moment that we talked about earlier where she was getting ready to, tell him what she really thought about him, but she didn't, because she know the enormity of the moment. And I thought she showed up very well. For those folks who didn't know her, they now have a better opportunity to know her and understand what she stands for. But to me, the choice is clear, and it was only made clearer by the debate performance tonight.
Okay, well, everybody, we're coming up on time, so I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to hand it off to Brother McKinnis for the last words, but I want to bring up a couple of things really quickly. First of all, I want to thank all of our panelists today. I want to thank you for your time and for sharing with us. You are truly appreciated, and I really hope we will have the opportunity to have each and every one of you back on with us soon in the future. To those who are watching, again, as a reminder, the views expressed during this broadcast are not indicative, are not necessarily representative of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the Midwestern region, or the District of Illinois, and the views expressed are those of the individuals represented. With that said, in keeping with one of our national programs, A Voteless People is a Hopeless People, this year, get out the vote. Not only go to vote yourself, but to participate in voter education programs. I'm going to give it out to two things, make sure Brother McKinnis brings up one program. But Brother Butler, can you talk really quickly about the forum that Xi Lambda chapter is sponsoring? I believe it is at the end of this month.
That's correct. On September 28th at the Akarama House at AK's facility on the 6200 block of South Ingleside, we'll be doing a candidates forum for the South Side candidates running for the elected school board. So that's District 6, 9, and 10. So far, we have almost 100% commitment for all the candidates in those races. It is open to the public from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. that day, which is Saturday, September 29th. And then we'll have a West Side Forum, which is tentatively set for October 21st. So more information will be posted on the website, and we'll love people to come out. And to Brother Sims' point, all politics is local. And right now, we need to get voter participation up in our local races. In the last municipal race in Chicago, only 21% of eligible voters in Chicago actually voted.
Right.
That is a sad number. So we have some work to do to get the vote out and to make sure people are informed about these new elected bodies and what's happening in their community.
Thank you for that. And my parting word is get out to vote early. You know, if you can do early voters registration, please do that. Encourage others to do so. Or if you can take someone to the polls, if you can drive someone, if you can arrange their transportation, please do that. As we said, we are in a seminal moment, and voting is important. That being said, I'm going to turn it over to our district director, Dr. McInnes, for last words. Dr. McInnes, you got 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to be shorter than that. Let me just thank everyone for joining us tonight. Shakina had a chance to spend some time with some alphas, and thank you for.
She's smiling. You see the smile on her face, don't you?
Thank you for hanging out, and to her hubby, Christian Perry, for letting her spend some time with us tonight. And we appreciate you and all the good work you're doing, Shakina, a remarkable human being. And to all those who had a chance to chime in this evening, thank you very much. I do want to particularly thank our State Senator LG Sims, who runs an extraordinary office, is the budget chairman for the state in the state Senate, and we know that his schedule is always incredibly busy. And so thank you again. I do want to say this to all those watching. Senator Sims never says no to me. And I don't know how I'm going to repay this man, but since I've been in his office, I have never heard him say no. And I cannot thank him enough for that. So to everyone, Brother AVP Brooker, you know how I feel about you. Thank you for being here, Brother Butler. Everyone, good night. And as
Brother McInnes, before you sign off, mention the program in Milwaukee real quick.
Oh, yes. So we'll be going to Milwaukee. We do have a few seats left on our bus to canvass in the swing state of Wisconsin. Come and join us in Alphas and beyond. You can visit alphaillinois.org. Thanks to an incredible sponsorship, the tickets are only $7 for a round trip ticket to Wisconsin, and that includes your lunch. So please visit alphaillinois.org. Go to Voteless People. It's a hopeless people, and come hang out with us as we work in that swing state alongside our Wisconsin counterparts in the fraternity, getting the work out, doing Voteless People as the hopeless people. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you all.
Thank
Good
you
night,
all.
Good night, everybody.
Everyone. We'll see you all in November.
Let's see.